Okay, I guess we'll get started. It's a very special evening here this evening at the regular meeting of Grand Falls-Windsor Town Council. I guess, I was telling people that this council racket would catch on, and now I know a big crowd here tonight. And I'm sure it'll be empty now in about a half hour when we get down to real business, but that's all good. We got some very special guests here this evening, and nice to see such a big crowd. And we want to get right into that before we get into our formal business this evening. So the first thing I'll do is call on Pauline Beersford and the Red Cross volunteers, if you would come forward, please. And Pauline and Red Cross are here for a very special presentation. So Pauline, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. And I know there's quite a few people here tonight, but I know there's quite a few people here to celebrate life tonight. The Canadian Red Cross Rescuer Award is presented to non-professional responders who demonstrate the power of humanity in applying the skills and training promoted by the Canadian Red Cross. And we have 3 of those individuals who really did that for us. Nicole Lush, if you could come forward. Tyrone Lush, if you could come forward. And Mike Perry, if you could come forward. Now, our mayor will read you a little story about the great thing that these 3 individuals did.
Thank you, Pauline. Well, I'll read from this. I think a lot of people, if not everybody in the chamber, is familiar with the story that came out a couple of months ago now, or at least a month and a half. It says, on March the 5th, 2017, Tyrone and Nicole Lush were driving down Lincoln Road in Grand Falls-Windsor when they saw a figure laying in the snowbank. Getting closer, they realized the figure was a woman. Fellow Grand Falls-Windsor resident Catherine Chant. Noticing that she was not moving, Tyrone and Nicole got out of their vehicle to offer assistance. When a pulse couldn't be found, Tyrone began CPR and Nicole called for an ambulance. While Tyrone was providing CPR, Mike Perry happened upon the scene and offered to help, taking turns providing CPR with Tyrone until the ambulance arrived. The rescuers updated the paramedics and EMRs on what had happened, and Mrs. Chant was transported to the Central Newfoundland Regional Healthcare Center. Tyrone, Nicole, and Mike's actions saved Mrs. Chant's life. And it's nice to see Mrs. Chant here with us this evening, as along with her family. And certainly I know, guys, I speak for everybody in chamber, council, and the town when I say thank you very much for your efforts. I know you guys quite humble in what happened. I read the stories and everything. I see you here tonight. Poor Mike, I was wondering if he's going to make it. But often rescuers are quite humble, and to do what you did, obviously, not only are the Chants forever indebted, I'm sure, to you, but also the town in general, and these sorts of acts are so important and something that near and dear to all our hearts. So I'll turn it over to Pauline now. She's got some formal certificates she wants to present, and again, thank you very much.
I just hope that these people give us the wherewithal to, if we ever come up on a scene where we need to help somebody, that we do, and I think you encourage other people to do that. So I want to thank you so much on behalf of the Canadian Red Cross, our staff and volunteers. We want to thank you by giving you this award, and please, you guys did an awesome job, and like Barry said, the Chant family has a mother, a grandmother here today because of the work that you did with her. Thank you so much. And Barry, I want to thank you and the council for giving us this opportunity to bring this to the public and show what these people did do for Mrs. Chant and her family.
We'll definitely do recognition, Pauline, and you guys organized this, and thanks for coming down this evening, and it's great to have such a big crowd in the chamber, very fitting this evening, so thanks again, guys, and we appreciate it, and all the best in your future. Thanks. a picture now before you go.
Come, Judy.
So we'll get the,
Okay. Thanks again, Mary.
thanks, guys. Thanks, mate. Thanks, Darrell. Of course, we do have another group of guests here this evening with us, and we'd invite you folks to stick around for a little while longer if you would like to celebrate something else that has happened in our community very recently. I don't know if you heard or not. But the Grand Falls-Windsor Cataracts are the 2017 Allen Cup champions. Obviously, a very proud moment for the town and for all the people in the community, particularly the hockey community who supported this team over the years. And I know for a lot of these guys, they've been involved for quite a few years. It's a big accomplishment, only the third time in the 108-year history that the Allen Cup was won by a Newfoundland Labrador team. So that's great to see, and obviously as Grand Falls-Windsor Cataracts, the very first time for our team. They came also close on a few occasions, so very fitting to win it this year. So what I would like to do now is to invite all the Cataract players that are on hand here and the organizers, volunteers to come up and join me up front. And I think you've got something else very special that you'll carry with you. Now, Stan, where are you too? Stan's not down selling, you're not down selling tickets in the lobby area?
No. Your Worship, councillors, on behalf of the Cataracts Hockey Club, its executive, players, and all these volunteers behind you. These are the people that help make it all work. And I guess some of you are saying, God, how do they win with all of those old guys? But sadly, due to geographics and so on, there's only 4 players here with us tonight. Mike Brent, Jason Stone, Brad Lewis, and Travis Randall. And you gotta, if you were there, we had about 50 people from Grand Falls-Windsor up to the tournament. They thoroughly enjoyed it and was a great support. And after we defeated the host team in the semifinals, the stadium was on our side. Everybody was cheering for the East to win it. They didn't want it to go West. So we had lots of support. But getting back to the trophy, it's quite an event. One that we tried for 4 years, and we finally succeeded on the 4th year. And on behalf of the club, I'd like to present the trophy to Barry, and the banner be hung in Joe Byrne Stadium. The guys are not tall enough. He's going to have to find a good spot for it.
We'll figure the logistics
Anyway,
out.
Barry.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Stan.
By the way, thanks for the support of the town. It's been greatly appreciated. Without you guys, we couldn't have achieved this.
Well, as I said, Stan, it's a big source of pride for the community any year to have the Cataracts and everything you do for the community, and the players over the years and the contributions they've made, minor hockey and the other associations that benefit from it, the young kids that look up to the players, as you all know, not as local players, but they put you on a pedestal, really. And I got to say, particularly in the last number of years, the team we've had was first class, thanks to the people behind the scenes, the players on the ice, and it's certainly a proud moment for everybody here to see our team, the Cataracts, the national champions for this year, very well deserved. I know before we let you go, Jared Butler is here, Dr. Butler is with the H&L Hockey Newfoundland Central rep. So Jared, you want to have a quick word?
Just a few words on behalf of Hockey Newfoundland and Labrador. I originally went up as a team physician, had to pull double duty, unfortunately, due to an emergency with another H&L rep. And it was truly a privilege to sit in those meetings with Hockey Canada and the other branch representatives. And what I came to understand is how well respected the Cataracts organization is at that national level in the community of Grand Falls-Windsor. We have a heritage here when it comes to hockey. It is known on the national level and is well respected. And this group of individuals, from the president of the organization, the coaches, the players, all the volunteers, and everybody who contributes to this team, the community, the sponsors, and everybody in the region who supports the Grand Falls-Windsor Cataracts, the support that organization received from the host committee and those around it, and the overwhelming, I guess, respect they had. They saw the class that this organization showed at that event, how they were to the community, how well they were received and responded to those people, and I would like to take my hand off to all of them on behalf of Hockey Newfoundland and Labrador. You represented our province well, and you did us all very proud as a community as well. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jared. Well said. I wonder if Jared's running for council in the fall. Sounds like he might. But anyway, guys, we won't hold you any longer. For those out there who are wondering, I mean, this is a way that we wanted to recognize the Cataracts in the short term. I know possibly some plans in place to get the team to come back as a whole at some point in the future and celebrate some more with the community. So thanks for coming in, taking the time this evening, and certainly thanks for the trophy, and congratulations once again on behalf of the town. Thank you.
Call me, my credit card's on the line for it.
Hey, we'll take this with us.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
No, I'm going to lay it in front, I think, on the floor. Thanks, sir. Yeah. Way down there. Put it down on the floor there, Gary. That'd be perfect, yeah? Now, we're not done with our pre-meeting festivities yet. Awesome. This is it's got to be a record crowd in the chamber, and at least in our time. Yes, that's right. I would say we're up about 1,000,000%. Okay, we do have some proclamations that we want to read into the record, and the first one is with regards to Volunteer Week, which is coming up. And we've got a group of volunteers and participants and employees from the Exploits Community Center, so I would ask if you guys would come up front for the reading of the proclamation, please. Welcome, guys. Come on in. Make sure you guys can get in here so we can see you in here. Oh. So what I'll do quickly is to get you guys to introduce yourself, just to say your name so everybody knows who you are, okay? So we'll start right here with Gail.
Gail Thorne, I'm the Executive Director of the Exploits Community Center.
I'm Arlene Sullivan, and I'm with the Exploits Community Center. I keep staying online. I'm the Employment Education and Skills Facilitator.
My name is Angie Boki, and I'm the Child and Youth Worker with the Exploits Community Center.
I'm Preston Rice, and I'm a participant of what she does.
I'm Dakota Mercer, and I hang out with these people.
I'm Carl Clark, and I go to the Exploits Community Center for Youth.
I'm Jason Calloway. I'm Hank.
Excellent. Well, guys, certainly want to thank you for coming down and all the great work you do. I know we talk to you guys on occasion, and it's nice to see some of you guys here who participate in the programs up there too. I know these guys are quite busy trying to find things for you to do, and I know you take part with pride, and they got lots of good things, eh? There's always lots of things to do. I see you got little day trips and some activities at the center, and always fun things to be doing. So it's good to have you guys here tonight, and certainly thanks to your group that do all the valuable work for the community. What I'll do now while you guys stay here, if you don't mind, sorry Gail, I didn't knock you over.
I'll help you.
I'm going to read the proclamation. So, National Volunteer Week, April the 23rd to the 29th, 2017. Whereas 12.7 million Canadian volunteers give their time to help others, contributing close to 2 billion volunteer hours per year. And whereas volunteers in Grand Falls-Windsor mentor our children, feed our hungry, comfort our lonely, beautify our green spaces, and fundraise for our charitable organizations. And whereas Grand Falls-Windsor's volunteers are young, old, families, workers, retirees, men and women of all ages and backgrounds. And whereas the collective result of the work done by our town's volunteers is that Grand Falls-Windsor is a more desirable place to live. And whereas volunteers serve on boards of directors, parent-teacher associations, Kids Eat Smart programs, community food banks, child and youth programs, senior programs, emergency services. And whereas organizations in Grand Falls-Windsor that rely on volunteers include such fundamental organizations as the Exploits Community Centre, Canadian Tire Jumpstart, Community Food Sharing Network, Youth 2000 Centre, Exploits Valley Community Coalition, Status of Women Central, Violence Prevention South and Central, Central Health, Canadian Mental Health Association, Channel, CNIB, Canadian Cancer Society, Special Olympics, YMCA of the Exploits Valley, Grand Falls-Windsor Fire Department, Exploits Search and Rescue, Exploits Valley SPCA, Canadian Red Cross. And I'm sure, despite such a lengthy list, that there are many, many more. And whereas volunteers play a critical role in ensuring programs and opportunities exist within our community. And now, therefore, I, Barry Manuel, Mayor of the Town of Grand Falls-Windsor, do hereby proclaim April 23rd to the 29th, 2017 as National Volunteer Week, and urge my fellow citizens to recognize the crucial role played by volunteers in our community. And as stated on this day, the 18th of April, 2017. Okay, so again, thanks, and I don't know, Gail, if you wanted to have a word about the center?
I guess just from our center's perspective, we have a board of directors. We're a not-for-profit organization, and we wouldn't be able to function without the volunteers that come and help for our youth programs, our senior programs, our kids programs. You know, it's not only our organization, it's many in the community that really, it's the lifeblood of all the organizations. If we didn't have volunteers, we simply wouldn't be able to function. And I mean, you know, tonight we have our staff here and our children, but we just wanted to recognize the involvement that we have in the community, and we're celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. So it's more important to us, I guess, this year.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Gail, for coming down, and I'm sure it's not the last we'll see you guys. Hey,
we're taking them all to a movie now.
Excellent. I see there was a lawn up across the road, so maybe you'll be able to get. I'll even get you in. Thanks for coming down, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we do have two more proclamations to read into the record. We don't have anybody on hand for these, so I'll go ahead and do that now, and then we can get into the formal order of business for this evening. The next proclamation is Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas between 2006 and 2012, 10,897 violent crimes were reported against children under the age of 18 in Newfoundland and Labrador. Whereas Child Abuse Prevention Month began in 1983 to raise awareness of the alarming rates at which children were being abused and neglected. Whereas every child deserves to grow up in a healthy, safe, and nurturing environment. And whereas child abuse continues to be one of our nation's most serious health problems, studies have shown child abuse and neglect causes psychological, emotional, and physical harm, which can create lifelong problems for victims of abuse. Whereas child abuse and neglect impacts our entire society and our society's future. And whereas child abuse prevention is a community responsibility, in finding solutions depends on the involvement of all people. Whereas this month we emphasize the importance of understanding the devastating problem of child abuse and neglect and commit to learn more about the behavioral and physical signs of possible abuse. Therefore, I, Barry Manuel, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2017 to be Child Abuse Prevention Month in the town of Grand Falls-Windsor, and urge all citizens to work together to help reduce child abuse and neglect significantly in years to come. And we have one more proclamation, and no less important. They're all very relevant issues here tonight, to say the least. Proclamation, Organ and Tissue Donation Awareness Week, April 23rd to the 29th, 2017. Whereas approximately 4,500 Canadians are waiting for a life-saving organ transplant. Unfortunately, more than 250 such Canadians die each year waiting. One organ donor can save up to 8 lives. You are 6 times more likely to need a transplant than to become an organ donor. Less than 5% of all hospital deaths qualify for organ donation. Age doesn't matter. Whereas we encourage you to have open discussions with loved ones about organ donation. You can indicate your wishes to be an organ donor on your MCP card. 25,000 Newfoundlander and Labradorians registered to be an organ donor through MCP in 2016. Therefore, I, Barry Manuel, hereby proclaim that April 23rd to the 29th, 2017 be observed as Organ and Tissue Donation Awareness Week in the town of Grand Falls-Windsor. I urge all citizens to talk to your family about organ and tissue donation and register your intent with MCP. Okay, now we'll move right into the regular order of business. So I'll call the meeting to order. Meeting number 477 of the Town of Grand Falls-Windsor Council. And the first order of business is the adoption of the agenda from meeting number 476. Any errors or omissions? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to accept. Councillor Brown, second by Deputy Mayor Finn. Any discussion on the minutes of the previous meeting? Hearing none, all those in favour? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Any business arising out of the minutes? Okay, moving right along. The disbursement report. Councillor Pinsent.
Mayor, I move disbursement report for this month of $74,523.69 be adopted.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Pinsent, seconded by Councillor Moores. Any discussion on the disbursement report? Hearing none, all those in favour? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Move into committee reports. Economic Development, Tourism and Heritage. Councillor Bartlett.
Mayor, I present the minutes of the Economic Development, Tourism and Heritage, 4:30 p.m. Monday, April the 10th, 2017. Present myself, Councillor Bartlett. Members present, Mayor Barry Manuel, Deputy Mayor Darren Finn, Councillor Amy Cody Davis, Councillor Tom Pinsent, Councillor Mike Brown, staff Jeff Saunders, Town Manager Clerk, Gary Hennessy, Economic Development Officer, Stanley Singh, Business Development Officer. The first item was the Economic Development Officer and Business Officer, Development Officer action reports. The Economic Development Officer and the Business Development Officer presented their monthly reports to the committee. There was discussion about several of the items. Staff will continue compiling and presenting these reports for each committee meeting. Mobile vendors wedding request. The town has received 3 separate requests from individuals who are getting married in the future and wish to have a chip van on site at their reception locations. The committee reviewed each request and recommended that each request be approved tentatively as long as each vendor purchases a mobile vendor's permit, be inspected by our fire inspector, and complies with all information on the mobile vendor's permit, and the applicant must submit the location of the chip van on an aerial map. Once all of this has been completed, Council will review for a final decision. Trade show booth backdrop. The Economic Development Officer presented another example of a backdrop for the town's new trade show backdrop to be used at the tourism show. Council wishes to move slowly on this to ensure that we capture the right message and presentation for this booth. It was recommended that staff continue to work on this display and report back to the committee. Civic Awards update. The Economic Development Officer reported that as of today, the town had received 24 nominations for the various categories for this year's Civic Awards. There are a total of 12 categories, and the deadline to nominate is April 19th, which is, I think, tomorrow. The awards banquet will take place at the Gordon Pinsent Centre for the Arts on May 10th. Phone app survey report. The Economic Development Officer reported that as a result of the recent phone app survey contest, we have increased the number of users of our phone app by almost 200. We are now over 1,000 users for the app. The survey contest will continue until April 26th. We will then randomly select one winner of the survey and award them 2 Salmon Festival concert tickets. The app is a free download, and we encourage all citizens with smartphones, iPhones, or iPads to download it. Fridge magnets. The Economic Development Officer presented 2 examples of a fridge magnet that will contain information on the town's event for the coming summer season. The committee made several suggestions on the content of the magnet. The staff will incorporate these changes into the magnet and present at the next committee meeting. These magnets will then, if approved, be mailed out to all households through Canada Post. Youth Mental Health Conference. The Business Development Officer reported that 257 tickets have been sold for the Youth Mental Health Resiliency Speaking Event with Dr. Michael Unger on April 30th, 2017 at the Gordon Pinsent Centre. For the professional session on May 1st, there are 60 people already registered. Meeting with the new Regional Director of Mental Health and Addiction Services, Central Health, the Town Manager, Clerk, Mayor, and Business Development Officer met with Dr. Tracy Scott, the new Director of Mental Health and Addiction Services, to review the town's partnership for mental health services. Senior Trade Fair. The committee recommended the $3,000 request to hire Vicki Nee as the Senior Trade Fair event planner. Vicki Nee has been the event planner for all of the last 5 fairs, and may I add that the last one was an outstanding success. Grand Falls-Windsor Healthcare Business Group. The Business Development Officer is working to form a business group comprised of healthcare service providers in Grand Falls-Windsor. The objective is to understand how the town can support this group for economic and social growth. The first meeting is scheduled for May 11th, 2017. Innovation Week, IBM speaker. Dr. Alice Landis McGraw, IBM Watson Health, is confirmed to speak in Grand Falls-Windsor for Innovation Week. The event will be on Wednesday, May 10th, from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. The venue is yet to be determined. Other business, the new business list. To date, there are 11 new businesses that have opened since January 1st, which is double from the same period last year. And a copy of this will be attached to the minutes. The video shoot schedule. The committee reviewed the schedule for Up Sky Down Films' next visit here to shoot several locations for the town's new promotional video. The meeting adjourned at 6:45 p.m. and I, Mayor Emanuel, move the recommendations and report of this committee.
It's been moved by Councillor Bartlett, seconded by Councillor Moores. Any discussion on the Economic Development, Tourism and Heritage minutes? Hearing none. All those in favour? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, next up is Public Works and Planning. Councillor Cody Davis.
Thank you, Mayor Manuel. Public Works and Planning met on Wednesday, April 5th at 4:30 p.m. In attendance, myself as a chairperson, Deputy Mayor Darren Finn, Mayor Barry Manuel, Councillor Mike Brown, Councillor Tom Pinsent, Councillor Peggy Bartlett. Staff included Jeff Saunders, Town Manager Clerk, Nelson Chapman, Director of Engineering and Works, and Chad Clendenning, the Assistant Director of Engineering and Works. First item on the agenda was the capital. The committee discussed the proposed capital projects for the next few years. The total for these projects is over the funding amount for the new multi-year capital program. Recommendations were made on prioritizing these projects. The committee recommends this be deferred to the Committee of the Whole for a final decision to give Council more time to review. Second Avenue tender results. The committee reviewed the tender results for the Second Avenue Water and Sewer Replacement Phase 2. There were a total of 6 bidders with the lowest bid of $1,090,344.90, including HST, by W. Reed Construction Limited. The committee recommends that the tender be awarded to W. Reed Construction Limited. The committee also stressed the importance that there be adequate production with minimal disruptions and construction be completed as soon as possible. Used garbage truck. The committee discussed the proposal to purchase a used garbage truck. The truck is a split rear packer truck that can be used as a spare and also for the spring cleanup. This would be a very economical approach as it would possibly eliminate the need for a new truck in 2018. The committee recommends that staff prepare the tender and will make a final decision when results are received. Common street names. The committee discussed the common street name issue in the town, which was brought forward as a safety concern. It was discussed that if one street name was changed, all common street names should be changed. All emergency responders have been notified to bring attention to these areas to avoid confusion. Maps of the town were also issued highlighting the common streets. The committee recommends that no names be changed at this time. However, recommends that staff notify all residents living on these streets to bring awareness to the issue. Garbage regulations. The committee reviewed the current garbage regulations because residents were concerned about possible fines being issued for garbage containers left out past 6 p.m. This is an issue for residents who are working late and/or shift workers. The committee recommends that the sections 3, 4, and 4.4 of the garbage regulations be changed from 6 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. to allow more time for residents to remove their garbage containers. Land request 19 Exploits Lane. The committee reviewed a request from Mr. Clark to purchase land at the back of 19 Exploits Lane. The request was reviewed by our planning technician and there are no issues. The committee recommends that this land be sold as per policy. Land request on Queensway. The committee reviewed a request from Bluebird Investments Limited to purchase a parcel of land on Queensway with 100-foot frontage. This property would be used to construct a commercial building. As there is slightly more than 100 feet frontage available, the committee recommends that staff contact Penny Honda to see if they are interested in buying a section of land adjacent to their property before selling land to Bluebird Investments Limited. All land is to be sold as per policy. Shoppers Drug Mart parking. The committee discussed the parking concerns at Shoppers Drug Mart on Bond Street. The main concern is individuals parking too close to the intersection, which causes issues for motorists and pedestrians in the area. There is adequate parking on the side of the building and across the street. A proposal was reviewed to paint markings in the spring to clearly identify the no parking area, the parallel parking only areas, and the travel lanes. The committee recommends that staff complete the necessary painting and signage as per the proposal submitted. Discretionary use, 10 Station Road. The committee discussed a request for a home-based business, hair salon, at 10 Station Road. A notice was placed in the local newspaper and mailed to adjacent property owners. The town did not receive any objections, and the committee recommends that this application be approved. Proposed development changes, results. The committee discussed the proposed development changes for the pawn shop to be a permitted use in commercial downtown and commercial general zones, and the auto body repairs to be discretionary use in commercial general zones. The notices were placed in the local newspaper, and the town did not receive any objections. The committee recommends staff move forward in the next phase of these development changes. Trailway on Main Street. The committee discussed the concerns from residents about the amount of dust from the trailway near Main Street. The committee recommends that asphalt millings be placed and completed under the next paving project. Exploits TrailNet Incorporated. Dave Knoll and Roy Folks, representing the Exploits TrailNet Incorporated, attended the meeting between 6 and 7 p.m. Their primary focus is to provide safe off-road use of trails and promote tourism. They had a variety of issues and concerns with the town and requested council provide some assistance, if possible. Some of these included linking trails around town and getting trail users into commercial areas for restaurants, hotels, and fuel. They also requested the town groom the trails within the town and the A&D line to Bishop's Falls. The committee recommends that Mr. Knoll provide a complete list of requests and submit to the Director of Engineering and Works. The Director can then meet with Mr. Knoll to discuss and provide an update to the committee at a later date. Our meeting adjourned at 8:45 p.m., and I move the recommendations and report of this committee.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Cody Davis, seconded by Councillor Bartlett. Any discussion on the minutes of the Public Works meeting? Councillor Brown.
Respect to the common street names, I've had really we might have missed an opportunity to change some names, street names that are common or the same name. I look at the Exploits Avenue, Exploits Lane area of our town, and actually Exploits Lane is 2 streets. It's not connected by an intersection, it's actually 2 streets, and I thought that the council should have taken the opportunity to change the names at this time. We sent our engineering department up in that area and corresponded with all the residents. There was some feedback and people were disappointed with it, but very little. Most of the people didn't respond, and they were told if you don't respond, you had no issue with the street names being changed. So just disappointed, Mr. Mayor, we couldn't get that through. For the it was brought to our attention for safety reasons, and personally I hope we don't have to revisit it again. But certainly disappointed we couldn't get that through at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Sure, yeah. Councillor Cody Davis.
Thank you. Yeah, and with respect to the interest and safety concerns with respect to changing common street names, it was quite a lengthy discussion actually, and carried into a couple of meetings, and we went back and forth on the decision for various reasons. I think in the end what we decided to do, in the best interest of not inconveniencing the residents, we did get maps of the town of Grand Falls-Windsor enlarged and did mark very clearly the common street names. We circulated them to our fire and emergency services, central health, RCMP, any emergency responders, and asked the department heads to make sure that emergency responders are aware of these common street names, and you know, that they are comfortable in when they receive a call to make sure they encourage the resident to give them enough information to identify the proper street. We also suggested that we would contact residents living on the common street names, identifying to them that say Brown Avenue and Brown Heights. Residents of Brown Avenue, please be aware that you have a common street name, Brown Heights. And when you, in the event that you have to call for emergency services, here are some identifying areas that you can tell the emergency responder so that they are also aware that they are traveling to the appropriate street in the appropriate area. So I think for the time being, I think that will work. I think the residents will be happy with that, with the result of that. And if we do get, feedback from the residents demanding change in those areas, then obviously we will certainly address it. It's not uncommon for us to change our mind if there is more evidence presented from residents or evidence to support why there should be change. So obviously we're open to rediscussing and accepting any new information anyone can provide. But I think at this point in time, this solution is certainly reasonable.
Thank you, Councillor Cody Davis. Any other discussion on the Public Works? Councillor Pinsent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm with Councillor Brown on this one. So I'd like to move that, I think there is other councillors who are not in agreement with this recommendation from the committee. So I move that this matter, common street names, be dealt with separately, removed from the minutes and dealt separately.
We have already got a motion on the table now to deal with this set of minutes. So would you like to rescind the motion and entertain a new motion as Councillor Pinsent had suggested?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have had an agreement in the past that if somebody requests an item be separated from the minutes, we would certainly do that. So I will certainly rescind my original motion to accept the minutes as presented and move that we separate the minute on the common street names and vote on that separately.
Okay, you need a seconder for that motion, seconded by Councillor Bartlett. So it's been moved by Councillor Cody Davis and seconded by Councillor Bartlett that we separate the common street name item from the Public Works minutes. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing, just to separate now we're talking about,
Okay,
right?
go ahead.
So if there's no discussion on the separation motion, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, so what we will do is go ahead and deal with that common street name issue now, since we've already begun some debate on it. So we've heard from Councillor Cody Davis and Councillor Brown, and now Councillor Pinsent, did you want to speak to the motion?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Pinsent.
I thank my fellow councillors again. Once again, this council doesn't always agree, but we work as a democracy and appreciation democracy, and you're seeing a democracy in action tonight again. So I appreciate everybody's support, and let's get her going. The common street names, I understand the argument that you're going to change one, you have to change them all. I kind of have trouble with that, and I have trouble with it for a big reason, is that this particular street we're speaking of did have problems in the past, and it could cost somebody their lives. And if we're going to say we're going to wait and do all or nothing, then we would never get anything done. So we're dealing with this one specifically. This was identified as the problem area. So if we don't start somewhere, we're never going to get it done. So this area, this street was identified. We went up, we had surveys gone out to the residents voicing their objections. It was very low, as Councillor Brown had said. There was a person nearly lost his life because of this. And in the interest of safety, I think we, start here with some of these names, deal with this one instead of saying, let's deal with all or nothing. If we were going to deal with all or nothing, let's face it, we wouldn't get a pothole done, would we? So I think we should definitely look, and most residents are fine with it, change it for safety reasons.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pinsent. Any other discussion on the motion? Deputy Mayor Finn?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to speak to a few points. The concern came to us because of the issue came to us because of a concern raised by a resident to Councillor Brown, and Councillor Brown has advocated for this through a number of meetings, and he's advocated hard, and I commend him for that. And he has made his reasons known to us. We have, and he and Councillor Pinsent cites safety as a reason to make the change, but in our own exploration on the issue, and with respect to the fire department and central health, they had not expressed in return to us that they feel it is a safety issue that they cannot manage with respect to finding an address. They appreciated Councillor Cody Davis's recommendation that we write them and include maps that show the duplication of similar street names, so that when new staff come into their employ, like ambulance drivers or paramedics or fire department or new members of the fire department, that they are not confused by duplicate names. And the duplicate names are Brown Avenue, Brown Heights, Cater Avenue, Cater Place, Earl Street, Exploits Avenue, Exploits Lane, Hill Road, Hill Street, King Place, Moore Street. So there are some duplicates. But that duplication is not unusual to Grand Falls-Windsor. Across cities and towns across North America have that similar duplication. You know, it's like naming Memorial Avenue or Memorial Place or Memorial Lane. Those are distinctly different names. They're similar, but they're not the same. So the streets, I feel, finding them in terms of emergency response is not a safety concern to the degree that would require changing people's civic addresses and causing a disruption in having to change all their mailing addresses. So I just wanted to point that out. And I just want to add one last point, and that is when the town of Grand Falls-Windsor, or the town of Grand Falls and the town of Windsor amalgamated back in, I'm going to guess, say not 85, I'm not sure the exact date. Yeah, there was some duplicate names at the time that were exact. And the council of that time, the joint council, they agreed to they'd done some changes, like for instance, Second Avenue was changed to Union Street because there was a Second Avenue in Windsor. And, you know, and I submit, Mr. Mayor, that the reason they didn't change all of them at the time is because they didn't consider them duplicate. And they addressed the concern at the time. And I suggest and submit that the reason why we're not changed, that the committee didn't arrive at a recommendation to change in this case is for the same reasons as that group from 25 plus years ago. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Finn. Any other discussion on the motion? Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I missed the meeting. I was doing something else, I guess. Not very often I miss the meeting. I was on vacation. That's fine. Thank you very much. Imagine, I get some vacation. I spent 42 years on the fire department here in Grand Falls-Windsor, and I'm very proud of it. And I've had the occasion to go to the wrong address on the fire truck, in the fire truck. And not only is it embarrassing, but it's dangerous. I mean, like I say, most of the streets are separated, are well separated because of the way the town was set up at the beginning. So if you got a call for Windsor and the fires in Grand Falls, you're losing a lot of time. And I'm telling you, it's scary. You say it's not dangerous? It's very, very dangerous. Plus the fact now you don't call the fire hall now where the guy on the telephone is a local fella and he knows this. But now you're calling 911 and somebody from Corner Brook is answering that telephone. They haven't got a clue about Browns Avenue or Brown Heights. They don't know. Plus the fact that if you're in an emergency, if somebody calls in a fire, and they're panicking, and you can easily miss the streets, at the end, like the place or the avenue. You easily miss that. So, I think we should really look at this, but it's only this item that I think we should be discussing is the exploits one. And, I really think we should change those street names.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Bartlett.
Mr. Mayor, I may as well give my 2 cents worth. I've got it for everything else. I think that if you're going to make a major change after 100+ years of living in a town, I think the very least we should do is, instead of sending a letter out to the residents, maybe call a neighborhood meeting and just see what kind of reaction, and just see what kind of, how many people show up and how many are, at least we can do a face-to-face. Because a letter and saying to a person in a letter, then if we don't hear back from you, by default, we assume you agree. I think, we're a small town. Let's do the face-to-face and see what kind of, if we don't get any interest, you know what? So what? We've wasted an hour. But I think it's at least worth it for the residents. I'm sort of on the fence because, as I had said in previous meetings, I had a friend of mine who, to me, lost his life because the ambulance showed up at the wrong street and didn't go to his place fast enough, and that was Earl Place and Earl Street. So I do believe it's a safety. Whether or not we're going to change it, for this particular one, I just would suggest deferring it, and instead of having a motion tonight and voting on it, I think that if we defer it and call a neighborhood meeting, I think that at least we give them the opportunity. If you don't want to be there or do that, I'm sure Councillor Brown would gladly be at the meeting, and a few other of us, that we're interested enough to see what they actually feel. That's it.
Okay, well, right now we do have a motion to accept the minute as read. As is always the case, any issue can be revisited, and a motion can be revisited as well, as we know in this chamber, and there's a process to do that if necessary. With respect to, I guess, a public meeting, I'm certainly all in favor of engaging the public. I guess the problem that I would see with it is that we make decisions all the time that impact different areas of town and neighborhoods specifically. We certainly wouldn't be able to have a public meeting over every issue. It just would not be practical to do so. So what we've been doing is, as you know, is to send the letter explaining here's what's proposed and inviting feedback. And that's fair. I mean, in my opinion, it's fair. If you ask for people to give input, they have the opportunity to do so, then, that's their ample opportunity to respond. I would not be against a public meeting, but just, a note that there are a lot of issues, a lot of decisions we make here that affect an awful lot of neighborhoods in town. And if we were going to have a public meeting, because for everyone, we'd be having public meetings 2 or 3 times a week, right? With respect to the issue, in my opinion, and I do agree it's born out of safety. The concern was raised, as Deputy Mayor Finn said, through Councillor Brown's correspondence, and he has tabled this at the meeting. We've had lengthy discussion on it. I feel that, well, certainly not to do it eventually for all Councillor Pinsent would be an injustice to the other. If we're doing it in the name of safety, and we've got street names that are confusing, then I would suggest that we would have to do it for them all. It's just, why would you do it for one, right? There would be a fairly, in my opinion, the potential for a fairly heavy disruption for people having their civic address changed in all those areas if we were to do it eventually with them all. And my vote was cast in favor of the minute as it's reflected there, and it will remain tonight, because I feel that the measures that we've taken, as are outlined in the minutes there, by contacting the emergency responders, and we've been told by Central Health they're putting a map up on the wall up there. They're going to highlight these streets so that their responders know that there are potentially confusing streets in town. The fire department are confident that they have trained their personnel to understand when a call comes in for one of these streets that there's a potential for confusion. Notwithstanding, and I certainly respect Councillor Moore's opinion, and I know there has been a lot of several issues, I'll say, in the past, and Councillor Bartlett has cited one, Councillor Brown has been impacted by one, and nobody wants to see an emergency, but I do feel that the measures that we have decided to take, and also contacting the people who live on those streets to alert them of the potential confusion so that when they're calling for emergency response that they clarify their address, is also relevant in this, I believe. So, you know, as I started by saying, there's nothing says that the motion can't be revisited at some time, and we can't change our mind, I guess, and if it's not already changed tonight, because I certainly don't know how this vote is going to turn out. But that's my feeling on the matter. Any other discussion? Councillor Bartlett.
Ask a second question, seeing everybody has spoken.
Sure.
Could somebody, you smile, because it's only this week we got clarification on that. Could somebody just, for the record, just let us know how many people had responded back? How many people live on these streets, and how many people responded back yay or nay, or what the comments were? Could we give in a sort of a Coles Note version of what happened there?
I can give you a Coles Notes version, but it wouldn't necessarily be totally accurate at this point. I don't know if we've got the accurate information. I know we sent it out to all the streets in question, to Exploits Avenue and Exploits Lane in that area. There were, I think, around 20 responses. I'm looking at the director now for around 18 to 20 responses. Out of those responses, there were probably 3 or 4 that were opposed, that just didn't want it to take place. There were another, I'm going to say, 6 or so that weren't opposed as long as it wasn't their street. They said they're fine with it as long as it's the other street that changed. And then there were several responses as well that said that they were fine with the change. So I'm pretty sure that's maybe not entirely exact, but pretty accurate, wouldn't you say, Mr. Director?
Yeah, I can get the results for you another time. But I think it was available in a previous meeting as well.
And it was only Exploits Lane, Exploits Avenue residents who were contacted on this particular name. All the other common street names, there was no contact made with those residents, so we have had, since there was no contact, there's been no responses from any of them on whether or not they would be in favor of the change.
And on that point, I guess, back to Councillor Bartlett's point on a public meeting, if we were going to have a public meeting, I would suggest we would identify all the streets in question and have one public meeting that would address the issue with all. That would make more sense, certainly, than having one and then having the potential for additional ones in the future. Councillor Morris.
I'd just like to take exception to your remark, Mr. Mayor, about people being disrupted because they're a change of address. I think that's it's a lot more important than for those people to be disrupted for a month or so than a loss of life or a loss of property. I think we should think about that.
Well, certainly, as I said, Councillor Moores, I mean, I'm not trying to debate the fact that this is not a safety issue. I absolutely 110% recognize that it is. And the last thing I want to see is someone, be the victim, I guess, if you will, of an unfortunate situation. What I did say is that I feel that the measures that we've taken have and will bring about the change that's necessary to ensure that it does not happen. And that's, so I certainly didn't want to suggest that the disruption in civic addresses was more important than a safety issue, because I know that it's not. Councillor Brown.
Just for a final comment from myself, Mr. Mayor, I mean, the fact that we've been here for 100 years and this problem is still happening is a valid point. I mean, Councillor Moore has been with the Grand Falls-Windsor Fire Department for 42 years, and it does happen every now and again. We've changed a lot of street names, as Deputy Mayor Finn alluded to, after we've amalgamated. I never heard no big public outcry because your street name got changed. We understand it's an inconvenience, but the town works with you to get through it. Canada Post works with you to get through it. And, as Councillor Morris, I certainly agree with you. This is certainly a safety issue, and I understand it's an inconvenience, but it's nothing like the inconvenience of calling an ambulance for yourself and having to go to a wrong address. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much.
I think I want to clarify my comment, because I don't believe I used the word inconvenience at all. I think I said it could be, potentially could be a major disruption, because when you look at the number of residents on all these streets, you're potentially looking at, I would suggest, over 100 people that would have to change their address.
We did it before.
We did it with 2 minute drivers.
Yeah.
Mayor.
Any other discussion on the motion? Councillor Pinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. enjoying the discussion this evening. I listened to what the deputy mayor said and talking once again about the inconvenience, and I've heard that word a number of times. And the inconvenience, and I agree with Councillor Morris when he says the inconvenience is small in comparison to the life that's gone forever. It's a temporary inconvenience. I'm not even sure it's that big an inconvenience for one street. If we're going to change one street, we're going to, Canada Post, as Councillor Brown has said, will work with you. They give you the cards to mail out. You've got a year to change. How really big an inconvenience are we talking about? We're not really talking about much. Just call it an ace. It would be a big inconvenience if we tried to change every street name and have that discussion and have a public meeting. Oh my God, I can only shudder to think what we would get out of that. On the public meeting, I'd just like to bring that up. It is our role as council to protect the social and economic well-being of our town. Social well-being means safety well-being. And in my mind, this is a safety issue. It's already had one incident on the street in question. Why do we say we're going to change all or nothing? I just can't, I shudder, I don't get it. Here we have a problem that's been identified. Here's a chance to change this and make this one right. We can deal with all the other ones later on. I'm reminded of something my father told me years ago. How do you eat an extra large pizza? One bite at a time. You don't try to eat it all at one time. That's what we're sort of saying here to do. And I just shudder to think. It's a safety issue. And we've talked with the fire department. Let's get to that. Here's a firefighter with 42 years saying it has been an issue. The fire department's come out and said they'd like to see numbers on each person's house. And we've agreed to that, rightfully so. And now we're going to look at a street where we've had this problem in this area, and we're saying it's all or nothing. I just don't get it. I really don't get it. I think we should change this, make it right, and move on to the other ones as time goes on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Pinson. It's also relevant with regards to the fire department to note that the fire chief did come back with feedback on this and suggest that the measures that were being taken, in his opinion, are measures that are acceptable. In terms of your point of why do it for all streets and why not just do it for one, if it's in the name of safety, I would suggest that if you live on any street in town that has a street that has a similar name, then your safety is in jeopardy if it's a safety issue. If we agree that this is a safety issue and this street needs to be changed, then if I'm living on another street in town that has the same sort of issue, then my safety is just as important as the street that's being changed, if you follow what I'm saying. Right? So, I mean, no, it's not a question. I mean, it's obvious to me. I mean, it's a rhetorical question to everybody. If this is a question of safety, and we're going to change a street name because of safety, then we need to change them all, because the people living on all those streets could experience the same potential scenario that we've been talking about here this evening, no matter what street they're on. So if we were going to change one, we would have to change them all. It just makes no sense to change one. That's my opinion. Okay, so I think everybody's had an opportunity to speak twice, except maybe. Well, you did make the motion, so would you like to speak, or?
Well, I guess I might as well close it off,
Okay.
I guess, before we do go ahead with the vote. And I listen to the arguments that everybody is making with regards to this issue, but I bring it back to the professionals and emergency responders who are the ones who are answering these calls and responding to the residents. And they are comfortable with, aware of, and feel on a professional level that they have all the tools necessary to be able to respond to these calls to the proper location in a timely fashion. So I think by going against their recommendations and agreement that what we're doing is okay, is discrediting their communication to us and their opinion on this matter.
They said it was acceptable.
Councillor Brown, if you don't mind, wait for
Yeah.
the point to be made, please.
So you know, and if we go to the residents, which, I mean, the residents have every opportunity at any time to contact us. We don't need to have a public meeting to invite them for their responses. I think the fear in having a public meeting is that when we make the announcement that there's a public meeting, people are going to say, I never heard about the meeting. At least if we send the letter with the information that we had suggested we do, that you live on a street with a similar name, and here are some identifiable points to, you know, make your call easier or identify your home for emergency responders, that at least they have that information. When we have a public meeting, to me, it will be the similar, same responses that we receive from the residents of Exploits Lane and Exploit Avenue. I'm okay with you changing the street name as long as it's not my street name that gets changed. And I think, Councillor Pinson, you're minimalizing to a lot of the residents that a street name change is not an inconvenience because it's easy to do at Canada Post. That may very well be easy to do at Canada Post, but when you have cable bills, phone bills, driver's license registration, memberships from different companies that you deal with, and you have to notify every person for every piece of correspondence, every membership card, anything that you have, that this is now your new address, then that can be quite cumbersome. And not everybody is a young individual who can flick on the internet and update information and make an address change. That's not as simple to do for a lot of our residents, and they need assistance in doing that. So, you know, I think the recommendation that we've made here tonight is the right one, and I would hope that council would support it as is.
Thank you, Councillor Cody Davis. Councillor Brown, you had a point?
I would suspect that the fact that we had to contact these emergency after 100 years, the streets have been there for 100 years, right? And at this point in time, we still had this, so it's an issue. It's a safety issue. Although these emergency people said they were fine with what we were doing, they never disagreed that the street name should be changed. I don't think we even asked them. Do we ask the fire chief or the supervisor of security at Central Health what they thought of changing the street names? We just explained to them, here's what we're doing. What do you think of that? It was good. Of course it's good. But like I said, the town's been here 100 years. There's emergency personnel going to the wrong address still, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Well, I guess, you know, I'll just close before I call for a vote to say that, you know, if it's been here 100 years like it, we may want to consider it a little bit longer. You know, everybody has spoke to it tonight, but as I suggested earlier, it could certainly come up for more discussion, and I don't think anybody in this chamber would be opposed to a public meeting, but it would have to be, in my opinion, of all the streets in question here. But for now, we do have a motion on the table to accept the minute as noted in our minutes from Councillor Cody Davis. I can't remember who the seconder was now, it was a while ago. And Councillor Bartlett. So I'll go ahead now and call for a vote. So all those in favor? Aye.
We should reread it.
It's basically, we are voting in favor of the minute which suggestions the actions be taken not to change the name, yeah, so to accept the minutes. So I'll ask again for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Moving along, I had to refire up my iPad. Where are we? Yes, sir. Bruce, Councillor Brown, and Councillor Pinson. Okay, so what we'll do now, of course, the rest of the minutes have already been read into the record by Councillor Cody Davis, so I assume that your motion would be to accept the rest of the minutes, excluding the minute on the street name change. Okay? So I'll need a seconder for that motion to accept the Public Works and Planning minutes. Councillor Pinson, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay. Salmon Festival, if you would read those into the record, Councillor Brown, please.
Mr. Mayor, Salmon Festival Committee met 4:30 Wednesday, April 12th. Members present, Mayor Barry Manuel is Chair, Councillor Amy Cody Davis, Deputy Mayor Darren Finn, Councillor Peggy Bartlett, Councillor Mike Brown, Councillor Bruce Morris, staff attending Jeff Sanders, Town Manager Clerk, Barry Griffin, Director of Finance, Todd Mercer, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation, and Gary Hennessy, Economic Development Officer. First order of business, Mr. Mayor, was the salmon dinner. The committee reviewed the budget for this year's salmon dinner. The committee discussed pricing for this year's event, and the committee recommends that the price be set at $60 per person. The committee also recommends that the budget be approved with a $5,000 allocation of sponsorship. The Friday night tribute, the committee reviewed the budget and break-even analysis for this year's concert. The committee recommends this be approved. The committee also recommends staff finalize this year's entertainment. Next order of business was the concert. Mr. Mayor, the committee reviewed the budget and break-even analysis for this year's major Salmon Festival concert, and the committee recommends this be accepted. The Sunday concert in the park, the committee discussed the entertainment for this year's event, and the committee recommends that staff continue finalizing the entertainment. Family Day, Mr. Mayor, the committee discussed the entertainment for this year's event, and the committee recommends that staff continue finalizing the entertainment for Family Day. Marketing and promotion, the committee reviewed an amended radio proposal, and the committee recommends this be accepted. The committee reviewed a proposal from Newfoundland Herald for Salmon Festival marketing, and the committee recommends this not be accepted. Sponsorships, the committee reviewed proposed levels of Salmon Festival sponsorships for this year's event. The committee recommends that this be approved. The committee also recommends that staff continue to finalize sponsorships for this year's event. The meeting adjourned at 7:30 p.m. and I move the recommendations and report of this committee.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Brown. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Morris, any discussion on the Salmon Festival minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Now, we are going to move into the Finance and Administration minutes. Before we do that, there are a couple of items in the Finance minutes that need to be separated. So what I'd like to do is separate both items as separate items to deal with, and then we'll have the councillors who have expressed conflict, perceived conflict, that they could excuse themselves while we deal with them. The two items are, one, the subdivision taxes, and two, there's two items actually in the number two that would be separated. There would be a funding request from Enactus, the College North Atlantic Group, and also the radio station note there. So I'd ask for a motion that we separate those two items as two separately dealt with items, and then we'll ask the appropriate councillors. Well, we could deal with two.
Two together, but it's three in total, yeah.
Right, because two deal with the same councillor who would be
Right.
excused at the time, so we can deal with two of those.
Yep.
And the other one separately. So I'll look for a motion to. Okay, so
Yep.
it's moved by Councillor
I'll
Moore,
second.
seconded by Deputy Mayor Finn. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, so first in the minutes there is the subdivision taxes. So Councillor Bartlett, you're going to excuse us while we deal with that? Okay, so Councillor Pinsent, I would ask now that you would read that minute into the record, please, so that we can deal with it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Subdivision taxes. Councillor Peggy Bartlett removed herself from this portion of the meeting due to perceived conflict of interest. The committee discussed a request from local developers to be exempt from taxation of unsold lots. The committee recommends 1-year exemption of water rates for developed lots. To qualify for this exemption, the property must be available for sale.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Pinsent, seconded by Deputy Mayor Finn. Any discussion on the motion? Deputy Mayor Finn.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I don't mind expanding on the reason what we're doing there is when this motion or this recommendation from council is about providing some support to developers when they're developing land for residential building. so that when they consider how many lots they will build in a year, in other words, invest into the community, invest in their own businesses, but make lots available. The current practice is that they would go ahead and build the lots, they'd put in the water and sewer, and we would tax them right away before they've had an opportunity to really sell the land. This recommendation allows a 1-year delay on the water taxation in terms of town taxing them. It's a 1-year delay on development, so long as that property is for sale, actively for sale. And that's the reason for it. It's a support for the business community from council, and it allows more land to be developed for the public to buy. So I just wanted to add the reason for that, and I support it, by the way.
And of course, it's important for us as a community to have land available, residential in this case we're talking about, particularly to allow our community to grow when the opportunity arises. So it's something that I support as well. I don't know if anybody else wanted to speak to that. Hearing no more discussion, we've got a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded? Motion carried. If someone wouldn't mind asking Councillor Bartlett to return. Okay, so Councillor Bartlett has rejoined us, and now we've got a couple of items that we'll deal with. Councillor Pinsent will excuse himself again for perceived conflict, and Councillor Cody Davis, would you mind reading those two items? There's one under funding requests, the Enactus, and then there's the minute regarding the Valley Radio at the end. If you could read two of those together, please.
So the item on Enactus, Councillor Tom Pinsent removed himself from this portion of the meeting. The committee reviewed a request from Enactus College of the North Atlantic for the upcoming provincial business case competition. The committee recommends that $500 be approved. And Valley Radio, Councillor Tom Pinsent removed himself from this portion of the meeting. The committee reviewed a request for space at the Excite Center. The committee recommends approval the committee recommends approval and also recommended space be modified at the Excite building to accommodate the request.
Okay, thanks. It's been moved by Councillor Cody Davis. I'm looking for a seconder for that. Councillor Brown. Any discussion on those items? Deputy Mayor Finn.
I think it's worth noting, Mr. Mayor, that Councillor Pinsent has removed himself from the meeting. One is because he's an instructor at the college, which is where the Enactus business competition team is, so he just removed himself for that purpose. With respect to Valley Radio, which is internet radio, that he is spearheading in terms of leading a community group to start an internet radio station for the town of Grand Falls-Windsor. And we have a recommendation here to provide that group with space in the Excite Center. Well, I don't think there's no direct benefit for Councillor Pinsent. He's certainly in conflict because it's a request from that group. So while I support both requests, that is why Councillor Pinsent is absent.
Okay. Thanks for clarification. Any other discussion on those items? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded? Motion carried. If someone wouldn't mind asking Councillor Pinsent to return. Okay, Councillor Pinsent, I'll ask you now if you would read the remainder of the finance minutes so that we could deal with everything but those items that have already been dealt with, obviously. So if you could read the finance minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The minutes, Finance Administration. 4:30, that we met on 4:30 p.m. on Thursday, April 11th. Present was myself as chair, Councilors Peggy Bartlett, Deputy Mayor Darren Finn, Mayor Barry Manuel, Councilors Amy Cody Davis, Bruce Moores, Mike Brown, staff in attendance, Jeff Saunders, Town Manager Clerk, and Barry Griffin, Director of Finance and HR. The committee reviewed the classification scale and job evaluation per salary non-management positions. Committee recommends adoption of the salary scale as attached. The committee also recommends the following classification adjustments. Construction inspector will become a job class 4. Special events coordinator will become a job class 2. And cashier receptionist, job class 2. Capital. The committee reviewed the proposed multi-year capital for 2017 to 2020. The committee recommends that 3-year budget allocation be approved. Total multi-year capital spending as per funding agreement is $6,358,664. The town's share of this is $3,051,332. The committee also recommends that the budget be amended to include $75,000 for the Excite building refurbishment. Community operating.
Councillor Vincent, if you don't mind, I'm told that the minutes have been updated since your hard copy version, so I'm going to ask you to borrow Mr. Griffin's iPad and read from that because there have been some changes to the minutes. So if you could take it right from the top again, sir. You're used to that.
My colleague over in finance, he owes us a drink for this.
Record that, please.
Okay, just want to start with that. Start right from the beginning?
Yeah, if you don't mind, just
Okay. Okay, classification review. Oh, I see what you're talking about. Classification review. The council reviewed the classification scale and job evaluation per salaried non-management positions. Committee recommends adoption of a salary scale as attached. The committee recommends the following classification adjustments. Construction inspector, job class 4. Assistant construction inspector, job class 3. Special events coordinator, job class 2. Cashier receptionist, job class 2. That clear now? Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Capital. The committee reviewed the proposed multi-year capital for 2017 to 2020. The committee recommends that the 3-year budget allocation approved. Total multi-year capital spending as per funding agreement is $6,358,664. The town's share of this will be $3,051,332. The committee recommends that paving be approved as per scenario 3. Other projects to be discussed at a later date. Community operating grant policy. The committee reviewed the policy for operating grants and recommends staff adhere to the reporting requirements for activity, budget, and finance reports. The committee also recommends that the policy be amended to include funding groups to submit a strategic plan to reduce reliance on municipal funding. Subdivision taxes, we've already dealt with that. Taxation utilities, the committee reviewed correspondence concerning the taxation of utilities, cable, and television providers. The committee recommends staff participate in the discussions aimed at changing legislation to allow municipalities to maintain the historical level of taxation revenue. It is noted that our projected revenue for this area is $734,807, a reduction in budget of $92,333. Labor report, the committee reviewed the labor cost as of week 12. Total labor was $675,925. This was $11,779 or 1.7% over budget. The committee recommends that staff continue to monitor these labor costs. Just for the general populace, of course, I think we still have winter. It feels like we have -12 coming tonight, apparently. But with the amount, the winter that we've had, I think it's remarkable that it is actually as low as that. But as we go through the rest of the year, I'm sure we'll get that in line and it will be within budget by the end of the year. Keeping in mind that our budget runs from January to December. So we've had a bit of a rough start, but I'm sure hopefully there will be a mild winter, fingers crossed next year, and we'll get it back in line, or over the summer, we'll get it back in line. Funding requests, the Salvation Army. The committee discussed a request for the Salvation Army Red Shield and recommend a donation of $500 be approved. Friendly 50 Plus Club. The committee discussed a funding request for the 50 Plus Club to provide financial support for members to offset travel costs for medical treatment. The committee recommended this be denied. Exploits Valley High School. The committee reviewed a funding request from Exploits Valley High School regarding Safe Grad 2017. The committee recommended a $1,000 donation be approved. TC pageants. The committee discussed a funding request from Miss Junior Miss Newfoundland Labrador pageant. The committee recommended this be denied. Alzheimer's Society. The committee discussed a funding request from the Alzheimer's Society regarding their annual walk for Alzheimer's. The committee recommended this be denied. Cash collections. The committee reviewed a taxation receivable report as of March 31st. The total taxes outstanding as of the date is $5,919,034, a decrease of $58,154, or 0.97% from the previous year. Mileage report. The committee reviewed mileage for equipment usage for 2016. Usage was on par with previous years, and no significant variations were identified. The committee recommends acceptance of this request. Disbursement report, which I've already read out. The committee discussed this month's disbursement report. The committee recommends it be presented at the next council meeting. Gas tax. The committee reviewed the gas tax annual expenditure report as of December 31st, 2016. The account is overspent by $534,983. The committee recommends this to be allocated from the 2017 gas tax funding. Civic awards. The committee reviewed budget for the civic awards. The committee recommends the approval. The meeting adjourned at 8:30 p.m., and I move the recommendations and report of this committee.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Pinsent, seconded by Councillor Brown. Any discussion on the finance and admin minutes? Councillor Cody Davis.
I just have a correction on the date. Our normal meeting date for finance is a Thursday, but April 11th was actually a Tuesday.
Okay. So noted. Any other discussion on the finance and administration minutes?
We did meet on Tuesday. This is the day the committee to hold the schedule.
Right, it was, yeah. Councillor Cody Davis.
I think we should probably just clarify, I don't know, Councillor Pinson, if you want to speak on this further, but the minute there on the gas tax, as of December 31st, the account is overspent by $534,983. That wasn't an oversight. I don't want the public to get the impression that the account was just overspent. That was deliberate planning. That funding was allocated to a specific job. We knew that it was coming from the 2017 funding. It's just as it's read here in the minute, it looks like it was a mismanagement of the funds, which it certainly was not. So I just want to clarify that.
Thank you. Any other discussion, comments? Councillor
Davis
Pinson?
is correct. It was planned from our budget last year, and of course we're going to correct it in 2017. We actually had agreed that we were going to spend more, and that actually got reduced in spending because of some other conditions that happened. So Councillor Cody Davis is correct.
Okay. Any other discussion, comment on the finance and administration minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Any notice of motion? No notice of motion. We'll move into other business, and tonight the first turn goes to Councillor Morris. You're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Didn't mean to give you a fright.
I don't have anything to speak on, only that fantastic trophy that the Cataracts brought home. And I'd like to congratulate all of them. They did an excellent job representing our town.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Bartlett.
I just have a couple of things here. Just to I know we did 4 signings or 4 proclamations prior to the council meeting, but this is still Daffodil Month, and I urge everybody to get out there and support it. I see several of our councillors tonight with their daffodil pins on, So, and if you, they're still, I don't think they're still selling the daffodils. I think they've sold out, but if you do see them at Dominion or Sobe somewhere, please support them. Just to let everybody know that we're all with you suffering through the pothole season. Everywhere from the north side of town to the downtown section to the Bond Bridge to everywhere. So just to ask for everybody's patience as the crews get out there right now and try to, I guess Councillor Cody Davis will probably make a comment on it a little further in consultation with our chief engineering staff here, but it's a nightmare, and several people, several businesses, we've had complaints from everybody, so a little bit of patience, and hopefully the staff will get out and address it soon. I think at some point we had a comment within council itself, and we asked that anniversaries and birthdays, we put a notice on our website or a Facebook to say that if people have anniversaries and birthdays and they would like council notified, that we would send out a notification to them or a celebration or a certificate from the mayor. So somebody asked me this week if we do that, and I had absolutely forgotten about it. So I'm just going to remind our staff that maybe we should put something on our website, Mr. Mayor, reminding people, like, I think there's like if you're over a 50th plus anniversary.
It's 50 plus years of anniversary and 80 plus, I believe it's 80, is it, Mr. Town Manager? I believe 80 plus in birthdays is, we do send out certificates and letters.
Yeah, but I think if it's on our website, then it
Sure.
would remind people that we do it as council, because a lot of people didn't realize that we were doing it. So I'll remind Mr. Hennessy that maybe we need to do that within the next week or so. Also, last but not least, we had a few sessions this week, or a few discussions on pooper scooping when you're walking your dog around town. And just for the residents to know that it is against the law to walk your dog. First of all dogs should be on a leash. And secondly, that if you're walking your animal, that you should be picking up after them, because there's nothing worse than the walkers and the joggers and the bikers and everybody else that's coming behind you, walking and stepping and running in it. So it is against the law. We do have an anti-litter law that says that if you walk your dog and the dog does his business on the side of the road or on your neighbor's property or anywhere in the public area there, that you have a duty to pick it up. So I just want to remind people that that's their duty. So hopefully we'll have a clean spring and there won't be too many people who've done that during the winter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Pinsent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to pass on congratulations to the Cataracts and the Cataracts organization. This is going to be a common theme going through all councillors tonight. And to see it within in front of the mayor there, makes a nice wine mug. And I'm sure there was some champagne drank out of it over the weekend. But it's an accomplishment, and it's a provincial accomplishment. It's just not only the town of Grand Falls-Windsor. And of course, town of Grand Falls-Windsor, Cataracts, the organization as we've seen here tonight, congratulations for winning a national championship. We're about a national championship, not just back to Grand Falls-Windsor, but back to Newfoundland. And with that said, the league seems to be in some question marks surrounding it. Hopefully, this week's victory and the herder, which was, I think, one of the more exciting herders in recent times, although we fell a little bit short, but certainly nothing to be ashamed of in overtime and everything else, that the league will sort of find a way to survive, because it does have a definite impact on, and I'm sure this is no secret to any of the councillors, it does have an impact on a lot of volunteer organizations and the whole esprit de corps of the town as well. So hopefully the league will survive and we'll see Cataracts hockey again, or senior hockey here on the island, because now we're the tops in the country. It'd be kind of a shame to see it die, wouldn't you think? Potholes, and I agree with Councillor Bartlett on that one, it's getting, you got to be frustrated, got to be maddening. You hear the complaints, and then the weather goes from +6 down to -12, and snow and slush and everything else, and it's got to be frustrating. And it's not just this town of Grand Falls-Windsor either. If you've gone to Gander, gone to Bishop Falls, gone anywhere, it's just as bad. And it's, I'm sure all the crews are looking forward to it. You just have to work with it. That's all you can do. You live in the climate of Newfoundland, you're going to have to, that's got to be there. Trying to fix the potholes in the middle of the winter with the weather like it is, it's trying to fix your roof in a pouring rainstorm. It's almost the same type of thing. So I sympathize with the crews. One thing I'm noticing as the snow is going away, slowly I suppose, is the amount of litter, and I've said this before, the amount of litter around the town, it's staggering. As the snow starts to move away, and I know we're going to have a cleanup fairly soon that the deputy mayor and all councillors, of course, support, and we've spoken about. But the amount of litter is just astounding. And you know, when we're trying to, so much in this council we've talked about in the last 3.5 years, off moving to tourism, off moving to trying to get this town, make it a better place to live, a better place to visit, a better place to do business. And you know, when you see dirt and things just thrown and strewn over the town, it says something. So I would ask residents, you know, if you see it, pick it up. It's pretty simple. Or don't throw it out at all. I know you won't eliminate it, but the amount that's there now is absolutely staggering. I had a comment, we had a meeting this past week, and I had a comment from one of the people in the committee. And his wife has been, once gone through cancer treatment. And we've talked about this in council, and he was pretty emotional in saying, do you realize? And I think council does realize, and you'll know what I'm talking about in a second. They've dealt with the cancer issue, they're dealing with the treatments and everything else. And then when they need to see the doctor, they have to travel to St. John's, and he said the meetings last 3 to 5 minutes. So they lose 2 days. They lose a night in, a day in, and a day back for 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. I'm sure there has to be, in the technology we have today, there has to be a way that we can reduce this on residents, not only here in Grand Falls-Windsor, but I imagine across the island. So, you know, I would sort of say and I know that this is not the first time I've heard it. I think I've heard it around council chambers a number of times, that anybody from Central Health is listening, or somebody, that, you know, there has to be a way to reduce this, so somebody doesn't go in for a checkup and be in there all of 5 minutes, you know, to spend that kind of money. So I'd hope that somebody would listen to that. On a couple of occasions, I've talked about Canada Pension Plan. Now, I know it's not a municipal issue per se, but I think it has a lot to do with municipal issues and with people in general. Some of you were paying attention to the news just recently in Labrador. One of the companies up there has their pension plan has not been adequately funded. And some of the people who are on pensions, seen their pensions reduced by almost 50%. And which I think brings more importance to having an improved Canada Pension Plan. And the Canada Pension Plan has been changed. It was changed, and it will come into effect in 2018, which will see improvements for people coming up. So we'll see for people, some of the people in this room, most of the people in this room, you will see improvements to the Canada Pension Plan. However, I think where it falls short, it does very little to help current pensioners, some who are living below the poverty line. So I mean, for the economy, not just the Grand Falls-Windsor, but the economy across Canada, that the Canada Pension Plan be improved for these people. Because imagine if you were to take the salaries, and this is something that the Canadian Labour Congress have been advocating, if you were to take their pensions and double them, what are they going to do with the money? They're going to spend it. And where's the money going to go? They're going to spend it in shops. They're going to spend it on things. The money gets circulated within the economy. So I'd hope that the current government has made some good, and this is the federal Liberals, have made some strides in this matter. I hope they don't stop there and they continue. Current pensioners are the ones that have been left out, and I hope that they'll make the changes. And some of the changes they made for the future means some people's rates will go up by about $7 contribution. So, I mean, you think about small businesses can't afford a pension plan. All of a sudden, we have an affordable pension plan that's a livable wage, and that's the word. It has to be a livable wage. For $7, well, we can make the changes. What would it cost to, you know, the people who have worked all their lives now and are surviving below the poverty line, trying to survive below the poverty line? So I'd hope that, and as a council, and I think it's our responsibility to speak out on things like this, and hopefully we'll see improvements on the Canada Pension Plan. Volunteers, we had a number of volunteers here tonight, and I'm just going to say a shout out to the volunteers. You guys were to the Kiwanis today. I think some of you were there for the luncheon. Unfortunately, I was tied up correcting exams, so I couldn't get there. But shout out and see all the volunteers here tonight. The Kiwanis, the Rotary Club, South and Central Foundation, they go on and on and on of the valuable work they do. So it was great to see a lot of them here tonight. Finally, I know you're all going finally because you're looking at calendars to see how long I've been talking. The radio station that, of course, we're moving along, and I excused myself from the meeting tonight. However, the radio station is kind of a little bit of a unique thing. as the town, as us as a council, the last 3.5 years I've been here, we've been trying to make a town a better place to live. And I'll keep saying this, make it a better place to live, you make it a better place to visit, you make it a better place to do business. And it's sort of all related in social and also in economic well-being. And the radio station hopefully will tie into that, but you'll be able to focus mainly on community. And this is what we're going to focus on. This is what the mandate is going to be. Focus on community, the people within our communities and the organizations within communities. And while I sort of separate it because council does not, this council, let me just say, I'm sort of taking the front of this. Council has fully supported this and I appreciate everything you've done, although we can't own a radio station. You know, it's kind of, we can't do that. But I've been taking the lead, and I thank all my fellow councilors for the support, and mayor and deputy mayor and staff for the support they've given us. And hopefully we're going to, and giving us a space in the Excite Center and everything else. And I'm pleased to take this on behalf of council, because I guess in the way I am, although we can't own it for obvious reasons. But I thank you for your support so far. The committee thanks you for your support so far. This week, next week, we'll elect a board of directors and we'll file for incorporation, which is important for as a nonprofit entity. That will happen next week, and we'll also form, I think I took some rules, some notes from my council days that we'll form committees, and we'll have 3 separate committees. One will deal with programming, one will deal with finance and marketing, and the other one will deal with mainly technical as we get our websites up and everything else. So I'm looking forward to that. I thank council and staff, and continue to work, and of course I'll continue to work with you, and hopefully we'll see that in the not too distant future, and it will be an entity you can be proud of. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pinson. I guess you could say we're trying to position you as future renters of the space.
With great pride.
Yeah, and I guess it's important, even though I think the distinction has been made here tonight, just to let people know that you've been spearheading this as a group that you're involved in the community. And although the town has been supportive of the idea, and I think the citizens are as well, this is not Councillor Pinson as a councillor heading this up. This is Mr. Pinson as a citizen who's involved in this and happens to be on council. Okay, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mayor.
Do you know Mrs. Brown? Councillor Brown.
Just to add another congratulations to the Cataracts and that organization here in Grand Falls-Windsor. Having been a former player and coach, I know the amount of work they got to go into having a successful season, as would you, Mr. Mayor. And to see on TSN this past Saturday afternoon, those guys from Grand Falls-Windsor win that championship certainly did your heart good to see that, and I certainly commend Stan Coffin and his host of volunteers and committee members, certainly, and we realize the amount of hard work, dedication, and volunteerism. And all these people are volunteers, Mr. Mayor. Ironically, it's Volunteer Week, but certainly a sincere congratulations to that group for winning the Canadian Senior AAA Championships. Also, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to let everybody know that there is a committee formed to take issue with the fact that people of Grand Falls-Windsor are being forced to relocate due to the lack of level 3 healthcare beds here in Grand Falls-Windsor. I mean, we got citizens, our own citizens, who've lived here for 80 or 90 years all their life, and as a result of them not physically being able to look after themselves and the fact they need level 3 healthcare, they're being relocated to people, places like Wesleyville, Harbour Breton, Bayver, Buckins. And these people obviously don't want to leave Grand Falls-Windsor. They lived in Grand Falls-Windsor all their life for a reason. And there is a petition currently circulating throughout the town. I'd ask all the citizens to look for that petition and sign it when you get the opportunity. When the petitions are all collected, we will be having hopefully a meeting with Mr. Hawkins and Minister Haggie, the Minister of Health, to bring our concerns forward with those two individuals. And then certainly we'll be having a public meeting and asking the public to come to the meeting and share some ideas or opinions on what we can do to resolve this injustice, Mr. Mayor. And that's really what I think it is, an injustice for the provincial government to be relocating our citizens here from Grand Falls-Windsor. Other than that, that's it for me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Deputy Mayor Finn.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just 2 items I wanted to raise in other business. One is just a clarification from our Public Works minutes. in that we did do a change in tonight's minutes to our town-funded capital, in that we had, on March 28th, we had committed as a council to the purchase of a split stream garbage truck at $303,000 and a new loader at $320,000. And in tonight's meeting, we elected to get a split stream rear loading truck at a fraction of the cost, $30,000. We think the purchase would be. And so that's a change, but it's not actually in the change that impacts 2017, because the purchase of the garbage truck delivery wasn't expected till 2018 in any case. Nevertheless, it was a change that I thought it was worth mentioning, because it's a change from one meeting to the next on a major piece of capital. So I just wanted to make that clarification. And the other thing I wanted to raise, Mr. Mayor, was as the meeting began, I'd like to end my remarks on the meeting, which is a big congratulations to the Cataracts organization. I watched the game on TSN, and when they won, you just feel so proud, right, of the team, and you get excited more than any NHL game would do for me, as you would know. And maybe not necessarily true for you, yeah? But anyway, it's certainly true for me. So big congratulations to them, and it's certainly a milestone that's worth acknowledging and marking, and I look forward to anything else we can do for them to recognize their efforts. I also like to recognize and acknowledge the efforts of the individuals tonight that got the Red Cross Rescuer Award, and commend them for being the good citizens they are and stepping up and providing support to Mrs. Chant when she needed it. Ironically, the Chant family lived right across from my mother, and so my mother knows them fairly well. She says they're a great family, so I know they are. And my mother knows everybody on our street, on my old street, I should say. I don't still live with my mother. Just, pardon me, yes, Grand Falls-Windsor.
The whole town she knows.
Absolutely, she does. There's no doubt she does. So I just wanted to big congratulations to the rescuers and the Cataracts organization. Amazing. I felt very proud to be a councillor and a resident in town of Grand Falls-Windsor. I felt proud for them. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Finn. I guess thanks for clarification on the decision to purchase the used truck, and it's worth noting, I think, that sometimes the cost of maintenance of one of these vehicles could reach the price of what we're paying for a used one. So, rest assured that the investment into a used one, if it works well, will be a huge payoff. Pardon me? It's a spare, right, as well. So it's a good investment. Councillor Cody Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things from me tonight. I know International Women's Day was on March the 9th, but I haven't really had an opportunity to publicly thank this individual. The first recipient of the WOW Award, which is the Woman of Wonder, which was provided by Status of Women Central at International Women's Day back on March 9th. And the recipient of that award, and I'm sure they had no difficulty whatsoever in choosing this person to receive the award, and the award winner was Lorraine Hearn. I think we're all familiar with Lorraine Hearn and the amount of work and advocacy that she has done for women and the rights of women and violence against women, violence prevention against women. So I wanted to take the opportunity. I know we've had a couple of council meetings, but we had difficulties with media being here and things like that. So I wanted to wait and take the opportunity to make sure that the message did get out to all of our residents, because she is so deserving of this award and certainly deserves as much recognition as she can get in that. So congratulations to Lorraine Hearn on being the first recipient of what will now be the annual Woman of Wonder Award with the Status of Women Central. So congratulations to Lorraine. I'll just touch on Councillor Bartlett's comment on the potholes. We did have some damage to our, the drum on our recycling plant for the asphalt, and a new drum is on order. I don't know, Nelson, if you could give us an update on the delivery of that?
Third week in May, it should be here.
Third week in May. So we are still working to review and repair all of the potholes in Grand Falls-Windsor, and I know, yes, there are many, and we drive over them all every single day, and they're very, very much an inconvenience, but we certainly appreciate the patience of our residents, and you have been very patient. We are filling those potholes. We are using the asphalt millings, heat, and coal patch to fill those. And as soon as our recycling drum arrives and that unit is repaired, we will certainly be out, to repair those correctly and not just to give a quick fix like we're doing now. So again, your continued patience is certainly appreciated. And just, again, I can't go the night without commenting on, of course, the Grand Falls-Windsor Cataracts and their Allen Cup win. Certainly, I don't know very many people who did not watch that game on Saturday evening, and quite an exciting game it was, and it certainly brings so much pride to the community. And I think the highlight to that even was when you watch Ron McLean and Don Cherry on Coach's Corner, and they talk about Grand Falls-Windsor, and they talk about the Grand Falls-Windsor Cataracts, and they talk about Mayor Manuel, and they talk about George Scott, and they talk about Mike Brent, and everybody is just going crazy because we're on national television, and Grand Falls-Windsor is being recognized on national TV, and that comes from the event that we held here back in, was it in October? Rogers Hometown Hockey. And I can't say enough about our residents and about our staff who helped make that weekend such a successful weekend. And we made an impression, obviously. We knew we made an impression because Ron McLean had emailed the mayor and council, thanked us for our hospitality that week. We heard from the staff of Rogers Hometown Hockey how much they appreciated everything that we'd done for them, how much they enjoyed coming to Grand Falls-Windsor. They'd never been treated like this before. Usually when they go to other communities or in different hotels, they're scattered here and there. They don't get to spend time together as a group. And we made it happen for them to have time together as a group. We hosted a couple socials for them. We did a social for Ron and Tara and the remaining crew at the end of the weekend. And we can't do any of that without the support of our residents. And, Don Cherry joked and, kind of picked on Ron a little bit, talking about did he have a glow on? And I've had a glow on ever since we've hosted Rogers Hometown Hockey, and it's not the same glow on that Ron had, but it's just been a glow of pride and a glow, of happiness and joyousness in the fact that our residents come together and they make these events so successful. And it makes Grand Falls-Windsor the envy of the province, the envy now, I'm sure, of Canada, because Ron McLean gave Grand Falls-Windsor a shout out in Coach's Corner. We've gotten media attention. CBC has covered it in newscasts. VOCM, I heard 4 times this morning, I heard the Ron and Don commentary on Coach's Corner was replayed on VOCM. Everybody you talk to talks about how, so awesome that Gary Hennessy, who comes in with his Cataracts jersey on. And Facebook has just blown up, gone crazy with comments and shares and likes, on this commentary. So thank you so much to our residents. It means so much to us when you come out and you support these events. We'll do what we can do to bring these events to you, but they're not a success unless you support them. And for this one, you came out in spades, and we'll certainly be eternally grateful. So thank you to everybody, and we look forward to much more activities and fun in the town of Grand Falls-Windsor, perfectly centered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cody Davis. Yeah, I joked, well, I guess it wasn't totally a joke, that the bit of money we spent on the social after the Rogers Hometown Hockey was probably pretty good value, don't you think, Mr. Finance Director, for our marketing and promotion dollar? We did all right with that one.
Return on investment is sound.
Yeah.
Picture.
It was great to see, obviously. I did notice my daffodil is there, but hidden, in case you're wondering. I do wear it proudly, and I do think we've got some these pin-ons still left at the front counter downstairs if anybody's looking, although the real daffodils, I think, are all sold out at this point. I just got a few things there. I'd like to congratulate Liam Gardner. Liam is a local Special Olympic athlete in Grand Falls-Windsor. Josh Gardner. I got it wrong. Thanks, Randy. Glad you were here to correct me. Joshua Gardner. I don't know where I got Liam to. There's a Liam that plays on the team as well. Right. Yeah, well, Joshua Gardner was actually went out to Mount Pearl, I believe, a couple of weeks ago to try out for the provincial Special Olympics team for swimming. And he made the team. He took like 20 or 30 seconds off his best time, I think, and made the team, and he'll be traveling to train. So congratulations to Joshua. I know he's very excited about that, and I wanted to pass it along. Jeremy Bennett. Some folks may be aware of Jeremy Bennett. He's a motivational speaker in the areas of OCD and ADHD. He does a very inspiring talk, and he's going to be in Grand Falls-Windsor on April the 27th at the Mount Peyton Hotel. So tickets are available for that if you just Google Jeremy Bennett, Grand Falls-Windsor, and certainly I'm sure we could put it on our Facebook. Is already there, yeah. So I'd encourage people to get out. It's really to see him speak is quite something. He was at the college, I know, last year and did a speech, and well attended, and he's got a very powerful message. Yeah, next week is Volunteer Week, and as was mentioned, we had a lot of volunteers in the chamber tonight, and really, I mean, volunteers, they're what the world goes around, and our community is no different. We rely very heavily on them, and they say they're the very fabric of the community, and there's no doubt about it. And I'd like to take this opportunity, because I see them sitting here tonight, and I see them sitting here quite often, and Des and Bev Hines, who are sitting down there manning the cameras and the microphones at Rogers. And I don't know how many years. I volunteered with Rogers for a short while, probably 15 or 20 years ago. I don't know, Bev and Des are around then. Des goes back long before that, 30 plus years, I'd venture to guess. You've been volunteering for Cable Atlantic and Rogers, Des? 26, 27 years. So being that is Volunteer Week, and we see you guys all the time, just like to thank you. And all the volunteers in the community, certainly a big thank you, and enjoy Volunteer Week next week. The Allen Cup, yeah, I'm not going to go on too much about it. It's already been said here, but obviously to see not just a few players that were able to make it tonight, and as I mentioned before the meeting, we're hoping to get an opportunity to celebrate with the entire team sometime in the future, but to see all the volunteers, the people that were here tonight, the people who do the broadcast, the people who make the travel arrangements, the people who do the on-ice promotions, the people who sell the 50-50 tickets, the people who work on the bar, the people who, behind the scenes, do so much to make that organization what it is. And I know Councillor Pinsent mentioned this future senior hockey is somewhat in doubt, but it's certainly not on account of the Cataracts and their circumstances, because they're a very strong organization, both on and off the ice. And the biggest concern, I guess, would be how many teams they'll have to play against. So a big congratulations. Those guys worked very hard to win the Allen Cup. I mean, 108 years that trophy's been in existence, one of the oldest sports trophies in Canada. And to have it here in Grand Falls-Windsor, I know is a very proud moment, and should be a very proud moment for us all. So another congratulations to them. The last thing I'll mention is the fact, and it's been mentioned already tonight, but I'll mention it again. Tomorrow is the deadline to submit nominations for our first annual Grand Falls-Windsor Civic Awards Gala, which is going to take place on May the 10th at the Gordon Pinson Center for the Arts. We've got 12 categories that we know we're going to have a lot of deserving citizens, teams, organizations, groups, etc. nominated for. We're very much looking forward to it. Tickets will be going on sale any day now at the Arts and Culture Center. It'll just be $10 for what's going to be a fantastic evening. Planning has been underway now for quite a while. I know if you go, this night is going to be more than you expect it to be. We're really going all out with the planning and the attention to detail. And for $10, we're hoping that as many as the community as can fit in the Gordon Pinson Center for the Arts will come and celebrate our community pride with us and celebrate all those deserving citizens that will be nominated. Right now, I think we've got around 54 nominations in as of today, but I don't want you to be discouraged by that. I want you to get out tomorrow before the end of closed business and to nominate that deserving someone, team, organization. All the information is on the town website. You can pick up hard copy nomination forms at the front counter at the town hall if you'd rather do it that way. Either way, I'd encourage you to nominate and certainly join us on that evening. It's going to be a fantastic night where we celebrate the great people in our community. With that, I don't have anything else, so I will call for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Brown, seconder. Councillor Pinsent. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded. Motion carried. We'll see you next time.